Blessed day, everyone. Greetings to you in the name of the Father, the Creator, Allah, Yah, Yod-He, Va'ohe, Elohim, God in our modern day term, and in the name of the Son, Thoth, Melchizedek, the Lord, Jehovah. This is Neophyte DAG bringing you a continuation of the message. The year 2022 is actually the year 2012. And this version of it is called, Behold, Thou Art with Child. So we're going to go into this phrase that's taken from Genesis 16, verse 11, where the Lord Thoth, Melchizedek, is talking to Abraham and telling him these words that I'm telling you right now. So it's a story about three individuals in the Bible. They're given to us as people: Hagar, Abraham, Sarah. Abraham, we all know Abraham, that he's the progenitor of the people, the house of Israel, the dark-skinned people. And we also heard of Sarah, his wife, and we heard of Hagar, his handmaid, the maid of Sarah. But these are coded names. They're not actually people. So I'm going to break that down to you. Hagar is a representation of the people of the house of Israel, the people of Jacob, the people of dark-skinned complexion. And Abraham is the Torah. It's the Egyptian teaching. The Torah came from Egypt, and it passed through the Greeks and then to the Roman. And that brings us to Sarah. Sarah is the Roman interpretation, the Greek interpretation of the Torah, which they broke out into Christianity. So that's the relationship that's going on with these three, but they're given to you as individuals, but they're actually Abraham, the Torah, Sarah, the New Testament that came out of the Torah. The Torah is the Old Testament. Sarah, the New Testament, and Hagar is the people now who originally had the Torah, and they were given now the New Testament as this new doctrine that they need to follow, which pulled them away from the teaching of the Torah. So when it says, thou art with child, it means now you're rebirthing yourself back to the Torah, getting the true meaning of your text that was handed down to you from your forefathers, which came out of the Egyptian teaching. It got tainted during the Greek and the Roman teaching. Now you're moving back to your original Egyptian teaching. So you now art knowledge and wisdom with child. Going back to the meaning of art, skilled, acquired by experience, study, or observation. That's what you're moving back into right now, tying yourself back to the Torah. Now let's look at the verse, Genesis 16:11, and we're going to match that with Matthew 1, verse 23. And it says, the angel of the Lord said unto her, who? Hagar, behold, you art with child. So art, as we have described, is knowledge, wisdom, and understanding gotten through skills, study, experience, and don't forget the spiritual meaning as well, from the Holy Spirit. You're going to be attached to the Akashic record, and you know all knowledge of knowledge. So behold, you're going to be attached to the Akashic record, and you're going to have this new birth of light, this new light being born in you. That's what it means. And you shall bear a son, S-U-N, from that light that's being beamed down. A son now is the individual who's going to come and help us to spark all that light within us. And his name shall be called Ishmael, which is a code word for Louis, for Lou, for Jew. Because the Lord, Thoth Melchizedek, has heard thy plea, thy crying, thy affliction. He has heard it and he has seen it. So now he's giving us this new light for ourselves, and he's embedding that light in one individual, the Son of Man, the Messiah, Ishmael, who's going to spark himself, and all of us going to spark from him. Let's look at Matthew 1 verse 23. Behold, a virgin shall be with a child. It's a mirror image of Genesis 16 verse 11. Behold, Hagar, the people of Jacob, the people of Israel, the people of Abraham, the people of Isaac, the dark-skinned people now that are in America. That's where they are right now. All these people of the 12 tribes are in America. North America mainly, Caribbean, Central America, some in South America as well. They're all across the entire globe, but the main body of them are in North America. Behold, people of color in North America. Behold, people of color in the Caribbean. Behold, people of color in South America. Behold, people of color in Central America. Behold, people of color across the entire planet. You shall be birthed with a light, and shall bring forth a Messiah, a son, and they shall call him by his name Emmanuel, which is Ishmael, with different words added to it. Still equate back to Lewis, which being interpreted by the Most High, the Lord Thoth Melchizedek, as God with us. So you art with that new light. Embrace it. Knowledge, wisdom from experience, study, observation, and from the Holy Spirit via the Akashic record. Thou art with that light. You have the knowledge and wisdom of that light. It's within you. Don't you know he dwells in you and you within him? Lo, they'll say, look there, look over there. Do not look, because the kingdom of the Most High is within you. The temple of God, temple of the Most High, the Creator, Allah, is within you, and it's not built by hands. That temple now is raising up. It is with that light, that new light, which is the child. Ishmael, Emmanuel, Israel, all go back to Lewis. I've decoded it here for you. Take some time, look at it, see how I get from the original name to the spiritual name Lewis, which is your messenger, your son of man at this time, your Messiah at this time. That's the new son that's being born. It's a code word. Again, they coded Abraham, they coded Hagar, they coded Sarah. Why wouldn't they code Ishmael? It's a code for Lewis. We're going to move to Doctrine and Covenant, 45 verse 25. But they shall be gathered again. Who shall be gathered again? Hagar shall be gathered again, because now she is with child. That new light is being born in them. Why can I say that? But they shall remain until the times of the Gentile is done. So that light went away when the Gentiles are the Caucasian, the tribe, the children of Japheth. In Genesis, it tells you who the Japhethites are, who the Gentiles are. But when their time is done, which are the Caucasian race, when their time is done, your light shall come and you shall be gathered again. Their time ended September 2020. Which brings us to Daniel 9 verse 25, which tells us about the time of the Son, the S-U-N, which we coded as S-O-N in the Bible, when his time shall come. Know therefore and understand Thoth, which is Melchizedek the Lord, from the going forth of the law to restore and rebuild Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the Prince, shall be 7 weeks. Unto the Son, Ishmael, Michael, Lewis, Israel shall be 7 weeks. So from that time when they're going to pass a law to restore Jerusalem, which occurred November 29th, 1947. 7 years later, the Messiah shall be born. So the Messiah was born in October, the 22nd day of October, 1954. That's when he was born. Then add another 62 years on top of that. That's the time he'll come forth spiritually. That occurred in 2016/2017. That's when the Messiah, the Son, came out spiritually. That's when he was born spiritually. Physically, he was born in October 1954. Spiritually, he was born, he came forth March 25th, 2017. Daniel 10, verse 21. But I will show you Thoth, which is written in the book, in the scripture of truth, which is the Bible. And there is none that holdeth, none that know with me in these things, in these truth, which is the law, but Michael, your prince, Louis, your prince. You notice in Daniel 25, it's telling you about a prince. Daniel 10, verse 21, it's telling you about a prince, but he gave him different names. One was Messiah, one was Michael. Do you think there are two different princes that are being born in Daniel? It's only one prince, different names. That's why I bring this to you. Messiah, your prince. Michael, your prince. It's the same. So who's the Messiah? Who's Michael? Louis, because they both are the same thing. Messiah, Louis. Michael, Louis. Israel, Louis. Whenever you see these three names, it is Louis. Whenever you see Ishmael, Louis, Emmanuel, Louis. This is the calculation for Daniel 9, verse 25. I just break it out to you now in numbers so you can look at it and get an understanding how I'm coming up with those dates. October 22nd, 1954, that is birth date. Look at the calc, follow it through, and you'll see how I got it. And then a spiritual day, which is 62 years after his physical birth, March 25th, 2017. That's when the Son was born now, and the Son is coming up now as this child. Take a look at it and follow it through, and you'll see where I'm coming up with these dates. Now it moves us to Isaiah 45, verse 4. I'm going to give you the name and the last name of the son that was born, Ishmael, Messiah, Emmanuel, Michael, Israel. For Jacob, my servant's sake, and Israel, mine elect, I have called thee by thy name. I have surnamed thee, though thou hast not known me. Let me read it again in the deeper spiritual sense. For the children of Jacob that have not yet gotten their spiritual light, they were without light during the dark age. Jacob is the name for the dark age time of the children and the house of Louis, the house of Israel, the people of Hagar. They became Israel once they got their spiritual awakening. They became Israel, the house of Israel. So when you're not in your spiritual light, my servant's sake, and now you're moving into your spiritual light, mine elect you became, and I'm going to give you a name for the son and a surname. In our modern day, our surname is last name. I am going to give that to you even though you did not know them. Jacob changed to Israel. Israel is Louis. Let's go find the last name. Psalms 89, verse 13. Thou hast a mighty Armstrong in thy hand, and high is thy right hand. A literal reading. Thou hast a mighty, take away that colon. Join those two words together. Armstrong. They put a colon there to throw you off. Armstrong is thy hand. You are a cross. Your right hand, political. That's your political power, your political structure, your ability to rule over yourself. The left hand is your ability to form a community of like-minded people. So if you're strong, you're Armstrong. So if your Armstrong is your hand, he's your social leader and your political leader. And high, strong is right hand, his political hand, his ability to lead the house of Israel that is gonna come now in our time. That's what is happening now. Psalms 89:18. For the Lord Thoth Melchizedek is our defense. He's the one who's defending us. And the Holy One of Israel is your king. Your Holy One, Louis, is our king. So he's transforming from a prince. Here, he's going to be transformed into a king. Here. So when he was Jacob, he was a prince. Now he's Israel. He's a king of the house of Israel. All on one page. Ishmael, Michael, Israel. Same name, Louis. That's the code word for Louis, the code name for Louis. Messiah, Michael, Israel, code name for Louis. Surname, Armstrong, as given to us in Psalms 89. Brings us back to Doctrine and Covenant, 45, verse 28. And when the times of the Gentile is done, which occurred September 2020, a light shall break out among those that sit in darkness. A light shall break out among Jacob, among the people of Hagar. The light is going to come after the Gentiles lose their powers. They lost their power September 2020. What happened after and in September 2020? The whole plague upon the land struck them, has weakened them. Who has been coming forth and giving all kind of message, revelations, visions on the internet, on the rooftop, giving the word of the Most High. Now the people of Jacob who have transformed into Israel because they art with child. They have the knowledge and wisdom now of the light. So let me read this again. And when the times of the Gentile is come in, is done, a light shall break out among them that sit in darkness, and it shall be for the fullness of the gospel. They shall get the truth of the gospel, the Holy Bible, and the Book of Mormon, and the Doctrine of Covenant, and the sealed portion, and the Third Testament. They shall get it. Brings us again to Daniel 12, verse 7. When the Gentile times is done. I gave you the date. Now I have to show you how I got the date. After the Messiah comes into a spiritual awakening, March 25th, 2017, Daniel says in 12 verse 7, how long shall the Gentiles rule over Jacob before Jacob now is transformed into Israel? And the angel says, it shall be for time, times, and half a time after the Messiah, after Louis gets a spiritual awakening. Time 1 times 1 plus 1 equal 2. Half a time is half. 3.5 years after the Messiah is awakened spiritually shall the Gentiles' times be done. Add 3.5 years to March 25th, 2017, you get September 23rd, 2020. That's when the Gentiles' times shall be done. That's when Jacob shall now be transformed to Israel, and that's when the house of Israel, Hagar, shall now be with child. You art with child. That knowledge and wisdom is going to pour forth like there's no tomorrow, and you shall shine, O Hagar. Doctrine and Covenant 45 verse 30. Reaffirm that. In that time, the genealogy of time of the people and the house of Israel shall the times of the Gentiles, the Caucasian, the white in our modern day term, people rule over Jacob shall be done. So it's going to collapse after September 23rd, 2020. And you see it's falling apart in America, where the house of Israel is mainly dwelling. Doctrine and Covenants 45 verse 32. But my disciples, O house of Israel, O Hagar, shall stand in the holy place, which is Mount Zion, and their Mount Zions and other cities of light across the entire planet that will house, O the house of Israel, and they shall not be moved when the 12 calamities are occurring upon the land of the Gentiles, upon the structure of the Gentiles, upon the land of those who did not prepare themselves so they can stand in these holy places. But among the wicked, men shall lift up their voices and curse the Most High and perish because of their not fulfilling all the laws of the Most High, which says, love, 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 love your fellow man and woman as you love yourself. Do unto your fellow man and woman that which you would want them to do unto you. But my disciples that came into this light, Hagar, that art with thy child, who came now into their spiritual light, shall stand in the holy places, Mount Zion in the United States of America, and there are 11 other Zions across the entire planet. Heavenly signs before the great sign and the revealing of the Son that was birthed by Hagar. You art with that Son. I've covered them in another message. Go to those messages, which is the signs, the heavenly signs before the great sign and the revealing of the Son of Man. But these are the 5 things that I've pulled out that will be great signs that show you that there's another major sign is to occur. Solar eclipses over a 7-year period, which is 2017, when the Son of Man, the Messiah, birthed spiritually, that child came forth. And that's going to last for 7 years, where the other solar eclipse is going to occur. 7-year period of the Son of Man. 7-year period of the solar eclipse. The planet will be shaken by extraordinary amount of coronal mass ejection, CME, solar flare. The big one, the major one, started in 2017, September 2017. It's going to ramp up over a 7-year period up to 2024. It will get so severe that it will cause radiation in years 2022 leading up to years 2024. 7-year period since thou art with child. 2017, that's when the blue star Kachina started to appear. If you go back to the Hebrew indigenous Indians, which are the dark-skinned Indians of the Hopi, they gave a prophecy that blue star Kachina will appear. And when it starts to appear, it will signal the end time that's coming up. And it's going to appear over a 7-year period. That's what the prophecy says. It started in 2017 to appear. It's going to continue to appear until 2024. Then it will disappear to be replaced by the red star Kachina. We know it as the dragon tail. We know it as a destroyer if you're familiar with the Colburn Bible. 2 stars will appear that are blue, one to balance the northern hemisphere, one to balance the southern hemisphere. These 2 stars are going to bring back the planet back to its regular axis, not tilted 23 degrees. It's going to change the spin of the planet from a leftward spin to a rightward spin, from an anti-clockwise to a clockwise. Anything spinning anti, meaning it's against what the normal should be, it should be spinning clockwise. That's the spin of the heavenly realm. The planet shall be shaken by earthquakes. Major earthquakes are coming, which will also trigger volcanoes. Major ones are coming. And those volcanoes and earthquakes are going to be in diverse places, meaning underground places, under ocean places, which will trigger tsunamis. I left that one off the list because that hasn't started to occur as yet, but it will be on my list later on when I update this to 7 heavenly signs mixed with earthly signs. Understand the date and the timing of this. We go back to the Messiah's time, the son time, that son that's birthed by Hagar. This is his time based on his birth date, October 22nd, 1954. If you follow Daniel 9 verse 25, it's telling you he's coming forth March 25th, 2017. Now, his birth date, the decimals within his golden ratio, when you add up all his numbers, and I will take you through this real quickly. English gematria, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M. Those are numbered. There's a number attached to each of them. Same thing if you do N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. That's the numbering. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Always 7. 7 is the magic number. So you match up any letter with the number that correspond to it. If you do it for Lewis, these are the number that match up. 2, 5, 4, 5, 6. If you sum those number up, you get 22. So in his first name, 22 is gematria coded number. Gematria comes from the Hebrew teaching. Same thing with his middle name. You sum up his numbers that correspond with the letters, you get 22. With Armstrong, you get 35. 22 means a pi. A pi is 3.14. Now, if you sum up all his number, 22, 22, 35, you get 79. Then you take the day of birth, which is 22. You add that to it, you get 101. 101 is the eye of Horus, the number of the messenger. So any messenger that's coming to you that's saying he's the Messiah, the prince, soon to be king, his number has to be 101. This is what this is telling you. Now, the 101, every number, every group of number has a golden ratio. It's the ratio that measures how things are birthed and when it's going to reach that critical time of its birth. The golden ratio, which we are taking from the Fibonacci sequence. The golden ratio is 1.618. It's a Hebrew ratio. It was just rediscovered by Fibonacci. When you take 101, find the golden ratio of it, you get 62.422744. What did Daniel 9 verse 25 tell you about the coming forth of the Messiah? 62 weeks, which is actually 62 years, he shall come forth. But when you do the golden ratio of 101, you also get 62. Which confirms what the Bible is telling you. If you do the golden ratio, it will tie you back into Daniel 9 verse 25, 62 years That's how you run your comparison to make sure that the person you have identified as the Messiah fit the golden ratio and equate back to 62 years when that person is going to come forward based on their birth date. So you have to be able to tie it back to the Bible to know that this person is who the Bible is sending to you. Now, we know the 62 because we solved it before up to March 25th, 2017. Now we have to look at the decimals after 62. 422744. We have to know how to group them now to get the other spark years of the Messiah, of the Son of Man, of Michael, of Israel, of Louis, because all the house of Israel is now tied into these spark. When these spark occur, the house of Israel will also spark. When is the next one? How we find it? We take 4 and 2. We add the first 2 decimals together, 4 and 2, we get 6. Then we add the 2 and the 7, we get 9. We add the 4 and the 4, we get 8. Then we add the first decimal with the fourth decimal, 4 and 7, we get 11. What do those mean now? The 6, after his birth, his spiritual birth, he's going to spark 6 years later. March 25th, 2017, what is 6 years later? March 26th, 2023. That's his next spark time. If we look at it, measure from his birth date is in 2016. That's when he would have done that based on his man birth date. 6 years after that, 2022. His next spark after 2022 and his spiritual spark, March 25th, 2023. 8 years after his spiritual spark, March 25th, 2017, plus 8 years. Brings you to March 25th, 2025. His next spark after that, 9 years after his first spark in March 25th, 2017. You add 9 years to that. It brings you to March 25th, 2026. His other spark after that, 11 years after his first spark in March 25th, 2017. 11 years after that, March 25th, 2028. That's how you calculate all his spark. Now, between those spark dates, you have to match it now with his birth date, his man birth date, because he has a spark period from his birth date of that year to the March date. So that's why we have the 2016, the 2022, the 2024, the 2025, the 2027. Those are the dates his actual man birth date falls on, and you'll have a spark from that October date for those years all the way down to the March date of the following year when the spark is at its highest peak. His spark will start to develop around the time when his birthday is coming up, and then it will go until the spiritual spark time, which is the March. In other words, his spark will start to develop from the October, and it will run until the March date, a wide window for his spark to shine. All those dates, the children of Israel will now shine. So if you pull yourself into the energy of the Most High, the energy of the Lord Thoth, you will also spark within those dates. Which brings us now to Thou Art Rich, which we'll cover in our next message, because we know now art is knowledge, wisdom, and understanding gained through study, experience, and the Holy Spirit giving you that Akashic record knowledge. So if you art rich, meaning that you're rich in that knowledge, now I'm going to have to show you that knowledge when it's going to pour forth with the spark of the Messiah, the messenger, Louis, Michael, Ishmael, Emmanuel, same person. Stand strong, be strong, and stay strong in the words, the blessing of the Most High, Allah, our Father, the Creator, Yah, Yod-He, Va'o-He, Elohim, God in our modern day term. And in the blessing and the word of the Lord, Thoth Melchizedek Jehovah, thou art with child, and thou art rich, O Israel.